Hey YouTube, Sugar Bytes has brought us Unique, which is another massive synth from the desktop world to the iOS world. But before we get into it, YouTube is demonetizing and screwing with a whole lot of channels right now for a whole host of reasons. So to blend in with the rest of YouTube, okay, I got a fidget spinner. Don't demonetize me. All right. Getting into this though, this is an impressive synth for many reasons. Like it's got a kind of a gritty, beefy, analog-y sound right out of the gate. Like I've got nothing weird going on at all in this, but it's got a lot of life. Let me bring down the second oscillator here, so you can just listen to this pulse. Right, you got the pulse width and all the good stuff there. But you've got some unique things in here as well, like this triple FM that is particularly amusing to me. So you get this FM, which kind of changes the algorithm. And then you can shape that to find something within that you like. Now that is not a typical FM sound at all. Like that, it sounds a little bit more analog. Like, listen to the grittiness into this. Like, you could make this sound using typical FM, but that is not a typical FM sound. That's super amusing. Let's come back to that. Let me show you another interesting thing we got in here. This sawtooth can be changed to a triple saw for a super saw, and you can detune that with this. And you'll notice that both oscillators have their own ADSR, so you can say, don't sustain this, just give me a sting of this and then fade out using this decay. Let's hear how that sounds with the first oscillator. Alright, I should not have detuned that first one. God damn, that sounds good. Oh my god. Alright. But before I get distracted, another thing that really amuses me in here is this built-in little LFOs for each of the panners. So you've got these built-in ADSRs, but you've also got these little LFOs that you can set the rate for, and it's all note synced. So set how much you want it to pan. And just a little bit of panning there feels good. It gives it some motion. I wanted to keep just a little bit of that second oscillator in there. And there's also a unison mode. Let's see how this sounds, because this is already pretty fat and crazy. Oh my god. We have liftoff. Holy shit. All right. That is like a super epic sound, but I don't know if I can tame that. Let's come back to the unison. We're just back to this kind of vaguely analog-y sound. And I want to show you the filter because it's also got a lot of interesting stuff going on in here. So you notice we've got the envelope mode here, which lets us, you know, tailor it with this. But you know, so it's got its own separate envelope. And then if you go into controllers, there's a whole nother envelope that we'll get into. But don't get confused. If you see the envelope here, use that envelope. I've confused myself, which is why I'm pointing this out. So this is the envelope for this. So we're bringing down the stain. We're doing kind of a traditional deep cutting. Let me switch this to a low pass. And you see, wow. You see how that just cuts way down. And there's this light that's showing you how it's going between this peak and the cutoff. And this is another somewhat confusing thing in here. On Korg synths and everybody that copies Korg synths, peak is usually a synonym for resonance. But in here, reso is resonance. Peak is the height at which whatever modulation source is modulating the cutoff. And cutoff is its lowest point. So I can... let me max the sustain so I can hear where it's peaking at. And I can fine-tune it, say. All right, I want it to be there. And now let me drop the sustain, wait for it to get down to its maximum cutoff, and bring it up and say, all right, I want you to cut off there. So now, lower the decay just a little bit. It's got a lot of extra harmonics from that drive. All right, let's play with unison. Pull on the resonance just a little bit. God, it's like the mating call of a jet. All right, so there's other modes in here. Comb is pretty amusing. It's doing all kinds of interesting feedback stuff. But there's also the ability to take any of these modes, let's switch it back into low pass, and now we can turn it into a formant. So now it's doing these vowels, and it's cycling through these vowels because something is controlling them. If I hold on to it, I can figure out what's controlling it. I can clear that out so it stops doing that. Probably have to bring up the resonance to hear this clearer. But once again, this Val 2 to Val 1, it's following what I've set here for the decay. So if I wanted to do, like, I really don't want to screw with this too much because I was liking the way that was sounding of the low pass, but I want to show this off because this is really cool. There's all kinds of different ways that you can be modulating this. The 4-step is particularly useful in these vowels. So it's just going to cycle through this. I think it's following the ARP's tempo. So if you want to change it, you can change it here. Like, let's test that real quick here. I'll set to 16ths and see if it moves faster. It does not. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's what the tempo is for. All right, well, let me switch that back because that's no doubt going to break something else that I was screwing around with. So I can... So that's particularly useful for things like if you were going to do some dubstep-y thing, like you would probably set this to a comb and throw in another filter here that was on low pass and cut off this using the LFO. I'm terrible with formant synths, so or formant filters, so I'm not going to make a very good dubstep, but I wanted to show the example here. That LFO is going a little too slow. You can only MIDI the things on the control panel, apparently, which is unfortunate because it would be interesting to use the sequencer to screw with that. I can use the sequencer to screw with what I wanted to do, though, so let me try that. This sequencer is literally just pointed at whatever you want it to point it at, and it makes it dance around all over the place. That's not moving fast enough. You probably want to have a tempo of something like... All right, that's enough of me trying to do dubstep. Let's switch this back into more traditional synthesis here. But you see, we still got this LFO or sequencer controlled cutoff on the second filter. We can change the type, by the way, with this. I don't know. I'm not feeling that. This lo-fi is kind of amusing. Like, let's set the mix to bring this in with the sequencer. There isn't really an init patch, so I had to make this, and there's one thing that I did not change, and that's this glide. It will dramatically switch things with the glide off. So now if we go back into this, you'll see that mix going back and forth really, really fast. With the glide, it slows down changes. So it's going from 100 to 0 with some animation to it. You can change the speed that it's going through this. So right now it's basically just like since I've got the setting here for random, I've kind of made, what do they call it? The non-deterministic sequencer here, where 2 out of 8 times it's going to bring in just a little bit of that bit crusher. That's actually the sample rate that I'm screwing around with right here. Let's throw in some chorus, because that tends to sound really good with some of these unison. All right, so that's... I'm not sold on the lo-fi effect in this instance, but that's me trying to present a decent sounding synth without getting too weird. Now let's get weird, because we've got this motion controller thing, which you can record in, like as soon as you hold it down, you're recording stuff. And not sure exactly how long it records, but once again, this smooth keeps it from jutting around, especially at the beginning and end of a loop. So like if you record something there. Oh, okay. Let's see. So you see, it's doing this fast up and then down. If I use smooth, it makes that much gentler, because without that, it's going to sound awful. We're not even going to explore how awful that is. So now we can assign that somewhere. We could say... maybe play with the sample rate. So we could use motion X for that. Actually, let's use motion Y, because I was all over the place with X. All right, let's try this. All right, you know, I'm getting rid of that lo-fi thing altogether. Let's switch this over to the filter, and you see that the sequencer is now assigned to the cutoff, it seems. So let's unassign that, and instead use the X and Y for that. We've also got an LFO and envelope that we can do some interesting stuff with. So I've kind of tweaked this so that this filter is not screwing too much with the other filter that we spent so much time on. So now if I assign the envelope to this and change the envelope from triggering from the ARP to my first note, we now have a whole nother envelope to control the second filter, but we're not changing the cutoff here. Now we're changing the mix. So it's only relevant at the first hit here, and that becomes increasingly less relevant, letting in all of the interesting harmonics that we've developed. Meanwhile, this is floating around all over here on the motion, screwing with the cutoff and resonance. But as you see, we've got these sliders here. So we can say we never want it to be fully relevant, or if we grab the back one here, we can say, you know, I want you to finish over here. And if we go back, you see that it stops the mix at that. If I move it over here, it now finishes way down. That's super useful for when you want just like one knob to do a very specific kind of slope. That's super handy. I'm really glad that while I've been screwing around here, it still sounds kind of decent. So let's push our luck. We've got the LFO that we haven't screwed around with at all. Trying to find a good place to put that. Yeah, the resonance is not going to be a good answer there. I've got an interesting idea. Let's set the peak to the LFO. And now, because remember, this was a profound thing on the sound. But if it ever starts, if I hit a key at like there, we get in a reverse thing where it's going from down to up and instead of up to down, and I don't want that to ever happen. So I can use this to say, you know, never go below whatever that is, which is above our minimum cutoff. So this is only relevant in the first few seconds of the note hit. But by setting it, each key has or each time I'm hitting it, we're getting a slightly different max filter peak. It's a little hard to tell with all the other stuff going on, but that is adding some extra dynamicism to this. I'm super loving that unison, but let's listen to it without, because it might be a little bit more demonstrative. So you heard that, and I hope you were paying attention to the peak while I was doing that. I'm playing those notes in the order, watching that peak climb, so that I'm hitting this note when it's at its maximum, and we're getting an interesting sort of tempo with the modulation that is giving us those different filter characteristics. I hope that makes sense. It's like this, one of the most complicated sentences I've ever tried to say in one of these videos. The peak is constantly changing, and as I'm watching it, I can play with that. I can perform with that in mind. Yeah, I'm glad I turned off the unison. This is much more noticeable. I've kind of run out of things to play with here. I've screwed with the sequencer, envelope, LFO, motion. And perhaps most importantly, I'm actually making a sound that I'm happy with. And that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, right? Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons for making these videos possible. Take it easy, folks.